5 million years old. This is, of course, in the figurative sense, for it is difficult for the rulers of the planet to call even a 5 cantor of 200,000 years old, shunned by wolves. But let's assume that man will still be ruling the Earth for those 5 million years. Even this customary figure is 36 times less than the period during which the planet was ruled by the dinosaurs. And they really did rule the Earth. Multi-ton carcasses and paucities are a source of ecstasy for researchers and a source of interest for ordinary people. I station to their history. In the next few minutes we'll try to cram everything you need to know about dinosaurs into one video. Of course, it won't be everything, but we're going to take a quick look at the history of dinosaurs, and we start our journey somewhere around 250 million years ago. It's the beginning of the Mesozoic era, which roughly translates as middle life. There's not much of it yet, because the first great extinction event has just happened, the biggest in Earth's history, when 96% of marine species and 73% of vertebrates disappeared. It's the only extinction that even affected the seemingly immortal insects. Scientists are still struggling to find the reasons for the extinction. So far, the main hypotheses are the collision with the colossal meteorite and volcanic activity, which led to a greenhouse effect in the atmosphere and a terrible volcanic winter that could last for decades. In this extinction event, the Earth lost the now popular trilobites that inspire horror film writers. But the important thing for us is that after the extinction at the beginning of the Mesozoic, when the situation stabilized, the Earth became quite spacious. New species found no competition and sprang up like mushrooms. This period is called the shakeout, and it lasted about 50 million years, ending plus or minus 200 million years ago. In addition to space for settlement, the Earth had another highlight, the huge continent of Pangaea, which was just beginning to split. Migratory species were easy to find, and there were both different animals and plants with minimal differences all over the Earth. There were no polar caps at all, and the climate beckoned for reptilians to evolve. It was very hot and dry, and reptile skin loses little moisture, give kidneys, save water like mad. Competition, as we mentioned, is minimal, for the largest living populations are mollusks to ammonites, which, as you understand, with reptiles do not compete with reptiles. So in general, evolution does not want to evolve, and so it turned out that while rhapsids, our distant ancestors with the first signs of mammals, died out, reptiles evolved. It's funny, because who knows what history would have been like without global warming. It would be the crumbs of surviving extinct therapsids that would become the ancestors of mammals and humans. In the case of Ceterontia and the story of mankind, it could have started differently. But as it turned out, and reptiles survived the explosion, there were archosaurs from which the dinosaurs emerged. And for one thing, these codonts, flying lizards and good old crocodiles. Even in the shadow of modernity, the archosaurs hastily displaced the harmless grass-eating leafhoppers, which for a short time became the dominant species on the planet. The non-mammal borsches are mostly predatory primates. Look at a crocodile. Increase its size by a factor of 3 and you'll see why peaceful animals didn't stand a chance. Somewhere between 230 and 225 million years ago, the first dinosaurs evolved from archosaurs. It's thought to have happened in South America. One of the oldest finds is a Rhecasaurus. Small growth of only 80 centimeters baby, but crazy fast and long enough, because the individual could reach 2 meters. It moved beautifully on its hind legs, and the front legs were traditionally small. According to another dinosaur tradition, the bones of the Rhecasaurs were hollow. This is very important, because hollow bones meant that dinosaurs of huge size weighed less than it might seem. In fact, you do not have to go far for an example of utility. Look at today's living dinosaurs, optic as well as uprica and hollow or tubular bones, which greatly helps them to fly. Of other interesting examples at this time appeared Grrrsaurus, whose weight could already reach half a ton, but the scheme remained the same. Relative bipedalism, long tail and love of meat. Also, the name of the first dinosaur claims Eoraptor, a tiny sekvesum about 10 kilograms. But in general, who would not be the first? Almost all dinosaurs originally came from the group of Saurus with a similar structure. The crucial point is that predators were the first to appear. Long necks and herbivory came later. As forms evolved, trovoids are generally considered to be the more biologically advanced dinosaurs. But what really matters to us is the fact that dinosaurs were not dominant in this era. Even giant crocodiles are better suited to the job. In the Mesozoic, dinosaurs were one of many fighting for a place in the sun, and they made up no more than 2% of the total animal world. The end came about 200 million years ago, at the beginning of the Jurassic period. Tradition has it that another event was involved in the end of the Jurassic period. Divin is called the Jurassic Shake because, as it's not hard to guess from the extinction, it's placed on the boundary between the two periods. And as always, there's debate about the causes. Once again, volcanoes and climate change are involved. But the consequence is that the dinosaurs' direct competitors, the Cretaceous, became extinct, and with them about half of the species known today. The dinosaurs miraculously survived, and it was from this period that their total dominance began. It was accompanied by several important processes. First, the split of Pangaea into two continents. This led to the emergence of different conditions and correspondences for different populations in different parts of the planet. Second, the split was accompanied by numerous volcanic eruptions. These emitted vast quantities of carbon dioxide, the likes of which the proponents of anthropogenic global warming had never dreamed of. And what on earth eats carbon dioxide? That's right, plants. As new oceans and bodies of water formed, rainfall increased. They helped the plants too. Their papilionaceous plants grew to enormous sizes. Many of the plants from this period are fossils, which are now actively being mined for fuel. For the dinosaurs, who had no competition, it was a gift from above. The group of sauropods mentioned above gave birth to real monsters. In 2018, a 12-ton sauropodomorph was found in South Africa. Predatory species in the early Jurassic were also beginning to show gigantism, but not as much. The abundance of vegetation led to a boom in womb-like species. There's a saurus, for example, which many believe was the ancestor of the Gazosaurus. This 4-meter-long gentleman ate grass and was already covered with small spikes to protect it from predators. Heterodontosaurus is also an interesting inhabitant of this period. Being 1.5 meters, the height of the guy was not particularly distinguished, but possessed differentiated teeth, having both incisors and viviparous teeth, and even fangs, which is particularly strange, given that consider Heterodontosaurus from Rovoetnami. But perhaps the main feature of the early Jurassic was bird Razovrazover. Flying lizards appeared at the same time as the land dinosaurs. But from where exactly, scientists cannot find out yet, because there are almost no intermediate species. It is important for us that somewhere 190 million years ago Tyrannosaurus began to feed infants and actively to divide into new species. Tyrannosaurus fed mainly a critter from seas. In fact, most paleontologists agree that dinosaurs only learned to fly in order to hunt marine animals. One of the classic examples is Dorognathus, with a wingspan of 1.5 meters. Its teeth were the envy of dinosaurs because they were curved and long. Of course, to catch the weary fish, the herbivorous, predatory, and flying creatures developed at a rapid pace. And somewhere around 150 million years ago, dinosaurs made up more than half of the animal kingdom. Of course, the insane amount of food, the lack of competition, and the gigatonic oxygen produced by the giant plants led to gigantism. And in the middle of the Jurassic period there were dinosaurs familiar to many. For example, Statiny small Diplodocus or 2-ton-armed Dasabovstegosaur, which, in addition to protective shields, is famous for the fact that with a huge mass of his brain weighed only 70 grams. This is no laughing matter. Scientists have discovered that the dorsal brain of Stegosaurus contained more nerve tissue than the brain itself, which must have helped it perform some functions. There was also a 20-meter-long brachiosaur with an insanely long neck that helped it feed where smaller animals couldn't reach. This is also where the ancestors of the Tyrannosaurs came from. 160 million years ago, a 3-meter-long guanodon walked as a herbivore. A little later he was replaced by a Dylan with a similar structure and habits. But in Tyrannosaurus it is not soon to Broivoletia. But the birds have already hurried and turned into Archaeopteryx. This is the first flying lizard with a covered perium. It is seen as a bridge between dinosaurs and modern birds. The middle of the Jurassic period was an important moment for mankind. And bacrochette-like mammals like mice shared the planet with the dinosaurs. Of course, it was not possible to compete directly. But Malusenki Euromaya successfully gave birth and fed their children with milk, right under the feet of dinosaurs. So let the history of mankind and short our ancestors all lived Bokobak with Diplodocami, and 145 million years ago together with them met the beginning of the Cretaceous period. By this time, the Earth had undergone some very global changes. The continents had almost definitively separated, although in places we're not used to. This is important because dinosaur populations had evolved in a restricted environment. Unfortunately, brontosaurs didn't invent airplanes to cross the ocean, and when we think of solitary dinosaurs, many people imagine that all species were found everywhere. In reality, of course, dinosaurs migrated, but the main populations were still tied to particular geographical points. For example, Stegosaurus remains have been found in the United States, and this dinosaur is even the official symbol of the state of Colorado. In reality, however, the greatest concentration of Stegosaurus is to be found in the Asian drainage. We will come back to this in a moment and, returning to history, we note that at the beginning of the Cretaceous period the gigantism of the dinosaurs reached its peak. At this time jelly was one of the largest species in history. Each vertebra of Amphicoelus was more than 2 meters long. The whole body was more than 60 meters long, and the mass of the little ones was up to 120 tons. There was also a shift in the families of carnivores. In Africa, there were Carcharodontosaurs, which were 12 meters long and weighed up to 10 tons, quite a lot for a predator. And in the Cretaceous there was a real explosion in numbers. For a long time, scientists attributed this to the development of flowering plants, because in the Cretaceous there were bees and insects that pollinated plants. But later the theory of the explosion of dinosaur diversity in the Cretaceous was disproved. Scientists now believe that most species appeared earlier, and that the only thing that happened at that time was an increase in the number of individuals. So we have what we have 100 million years ago. The largest predatory dinosaurs in history appeared in northern Africa. It is the back of the zebra that holds this title, although the Tyrannosaurus was slightly heavier. The little guy could reach up to 16 meters in length, a few meters bigger than its famous rival. Tyrannosauruses themselves appeared much later, and are in fact almost the youngest dinosaur species, with the oldest remains dating back to 70 million years ago. The same goes for everyone's favorite velociraptors. They also appeared plus or minus 80 million years ago. But the insanely popular Threacerapses are generally almost the youngest species of dinosaur, with the latest skeletons dated at 68 million years ago. So, ironically, the most popular dinosaurs from the Jurassic Park film series actually appeared much later, in the Cretaceous period, and they looked very different. Bucolno recently, scientists have converged in Bomnini that the bodies of almost all dinosaurs were covered with cheerful plumage, and many scientists now believe that velociraptors were more like walking on foot birds than on the lizards and Skino. But before the Cretaceous, life went on as usual. The Earth became a little cooler, and there was even snow at the poles. As the continents broke up and drifted apart, different parts of the world experienced different climates. This, in turn, caused species to evolve according to their location. For example, birds eventually separated from the dinosaurs, and the transitional link between the species, the Archaeopteryx, became extinct, but the Optrodactyls still dominated the air. Not surprisingly, some individuals, such as Quetzalcoatl, had wingspans of up to 15 meters, and these guys are considered to be the largest flying dinosaurs in history. True, there are some competitors, but that is paleontology and not our concern. Our concern is that history from this point of view is worth noting. The dragons. They appeared together with the lizards in the Cretaceous period, and they remained virtually unchanged until modern times. There were turtles and tortoises, crocodiles in a reduced form, and of course fish, but again, in a secondary role. The seas were densely populated by dinosaurs, could not even dream of dominance. Little elasmosaurs fattened up to 15 tons, and their theosaurs and plesiosaurs were not far behind. But the most important thing for us is that by the end of the Cretaceous, the lek-eaters had already diversified into marsupials, then estimators and oviparous apes. By 87 million years ago, the first monkeys and apes had already appeared. It is thought that the ancient primates most likely appeared in the tropical forests of Asia and then spread around the world. Estimates of when these distant ancestors of humans appeared vary, But it is safe to say that by the time of Tyrannosaurus, apes were already climbing trees. But like the dinosaurs of their time, mammals, and that's it. Do you want part 2? Get 200 likes and we'll release part 2 immediately. Don't forget to subscribe and like us, and we'll say goodbye to you. See you soon.